First of all, I welcome Professor Nishal Verma from Electrical Engineering Department, IIT Kanpur. And dear participants, I welcome you also in the afternoon session. And this is session 11 of Recent Advances in Control Systems 2020. This is being organized at the Madan Mohan Malviya University of Technology, Gorakhpur, and sponsored by the AICT Atal Academy. So before I hand over the session to Professor Verma, let me read his biography. Dr. Nishal Kumar Verma is a professor in the Department of Electrical Engineering and Interdisciplinary Program in Cognitive Science at Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur, India. He obtained his PhD in Electrical Engineering from Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. He is an awardee of Devendra Shukla Young Faculty Research Fellowship by Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur for the year 2013 to 16. Dr. Verma's research expertise falls under the artificial intelligence related theories and its practical applications to many interdisciplinary domains, but not limited to machine learning, deep learning, computer vision, prognosis and health management, bioinformatics, cyber physical systems, complex and highly nonlinear system modeling, cluster and classifications, etc. He has published more than 230 research papers and edited and co-authored 4 books in the field of artificial intelligence itself. He has successfully completed 23 projects from various funding agencies such as the Boeing Company USA, Department of Science and Technology, DRDO, JCB CAT, MHRD, SERB, CSIR, IIT Kanpur itself, MCIT, SFTIG, VTOL, etc. He has more than 15 years of experience in the field of artificial intelligence. He has been serving as in the capacity of associate editor in various editorial boards of reputed journals and conferences, which include IEEE transactions on artificial intelligence, IEEE transactions on neural networks and learning systems, IEEE Computational Intelligence Magazine, editor IEEEX, and many more. He has also developed several AI-related key technologies for the Boeing Company USA and organized artificial intelligence-related workshop, conferences, seminars, short-term courses, and many more things to say. So we really feel fortunate enough that Professor Verma sir has now with us to deliver his talk on deep learning. So I request you, sir, to take over the session. And thank you very much, sir. You promptly accepted our invitation, and now you are with us to deliver your lecture. So please, sir.
Thank you very much for a nice introduction. I hope I am audible enough.
Yes, sir.
And visible.
You are visible as well.
Yeah, so voice level is fine, or should I increase the voice level?
No, it is perfectly all right. The level is
okay, great. So yeah, so thank you very much for inviting me to be present amongst you and be part of this interaction. And of course, I accepted with the hope that I will also be, enjoying this gathering, virtual gathering, and I would also take the benefit of interacting with you all. So let us now talk of the deep learning, and if the time permits, I would like to include deep fuzzy networks. So these days, everyone talks about artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, right? So in this interaction, I would like to at least in simple terms, of course, normal terms, not the without any background needed. I would like to discuss. I would like to make you understand artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the deep learning. So let me just start with the mentions of deep learning.
Pardon, sir. Please share your PPT.
It's not shared? Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Okay. This means there is some issue.
No, no. Actually, we shared the welcome that slide. That is.
Oh, that is only shared. Okay. Let me share it. I'm not very familiar with this. So let me, yeah. So let me share the contents. Okay. Is it now visible?
Yes, sir. Yes.
What is being shown now?
The head.
Two slides are one big slide, one small slide, right?
No, one slide only. Deep
One
learning
slide.
and deep fuzzy networks.
Okay. How about now? The same?
Yes, sir. Same.
Okay. And my video is also coming?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Audio is also clear?
Yes, sir. Very much clear.
Okay, great. So yeah, so now let us, in continuation to what I was just mentioning, right? So I was mentioning that, see, the deep learning is a buzzword. Everyone talks about deep learning these days, artificial intelligence, machine learning. So let us now, in layman's wordings, let us understand what these words mean to us, right? And of course, we'll discuss, we'll go ahead and understand, in engineering terms also, as to what do they contribute, and what actually they are. So here you see the deep learning, the mention of deep learning in MIT Technology Review. It's a very prestigious journal. And you see in 2013, I am encircling by pen. So is it visible?
Yes.
Is this visible? I am writing by pen. I hope this is clearly visible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Now I get this. Okay, great. So in 2013, you see MIT Technology Review, it published 10 breakthrough technologies. And you see MIT, as I mentioned, this technology review is a very prestigious journal. And if something comes in this journal as the popular technologies, of course, people would have to believe on it. Although in this deep learning breakthrough had happened in 2006. So this was not new, but you see, it has been popularized so much that up to this stage, this deep learning has gained to the level where MIT technology has to have the mentions of the deep learning, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that in 2013, this has
Sir, you are muted now. In fact.
Dr. Avdesh,
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
वो म्यूट है, आ नहीं रही
हाँ,
आवाज।
हाँ बताया सर मैंने।
कॉल कर
प्रोफेसर
लीजिए, कॉल करके बताइए।
अच्छा, प्रोफेसर वर्मा सर।
लॉलीपॉप देके चल रहे इलेक्शन आ रहा है।
नहीं, सेकंड। Sorry for inconvenience, participants. So, sir would again be leaving now, and again he'll join in. Wait for a minute. Participants, please wait for a minute.
Dr. Odes,
Yes, sir.
have you contacted him?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So he has left now, and again he will rejoin.
Achha. Okay.
His audio was somehow muted, and he was not able to unmute himself. So what he is doing is he left first, and then he'll rejoin.
Okay. Okay.
So for that we are waiting. It will take 1 or 2 minutes.
No problem.
Today, sir, we had a lecture on optimization. So, sir has joined now.
अभी सुनाई दे रहा है?
Yes, sir. अब आवाज आ रही है.
अब आ रही है.
PPT विजिबल है.
अभी रुकिए, मुझे बताते जाइए. एक्चुअली यही इसलिए है कि हम लोग हर बहुत टाइप का ऐप यूज करते हैं, तो
जी
ये इश्यूज आ रहे हैं.
Professor Verma, VK Giri here. VK
हाँ,
Giri here.
गिरी साहब कैसे?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
गुड आफ्टरनून. गुड आफ्टरनून. बहुत अच्छा लगा कि आप भी बैठे हुए हैं.
नहीं, how can I miss your lecture?
प्लेजर सर. एक्चुअली मैं तो यही कहूंगा कि हमेशा एक ही ऐप यूज करना चाहिए, एक या दो. ये आपस में इंटरेक्ट कर जाते हैं. अपने आप बंद हो गया था, मुझे लग रहा है शायद पहले सही चल रहा था, फिर अपने आप बंद हो गया.
हाँ, नहीं शुरू इंट्रोड्यूस हो गया था आपका, वो पेन से सर्किल भी करके आ रहा था, सब सही चल रहा था, पता नहीं बीच में
आवाज आ रही थी उस टाइम में.
नहीं, आवाज नहीं. सो इनिशियली आई है 2-3-4-5 मिनट तक.
अच्छा. हाँ, वही 5 मिनट आई.
हाँ, उसके बाद से म्यूट हो गया,
बंद हो गया. वही मुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा है क्यों हुआ. अभी दिखाई दे रहा है.
हाँ, डीप लर्निंग एंड डीप फजी नेटवर्क्स
दिखाई दे रहा है. हाँ, एक ही स्लाइड दिखाई दे रहा है या दोनों?
एक दिखाई दे रहा है.
एक दिखाई दे. ठीक है. अच्छा, ठीक है. तो अब हम यहाँ से शुरू करते हैं.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I'm really sorry for the interruption. Let us now continue this discussion. So I was just mentioning that you see here in 2013, the mention of deep learning, really helped the research community, to get to know that deep learning is also a promising mathematical tool that exists and that is very helpful for modeling the complex systems, right, towards embedding intelligence into the non-living being systems. That means the artificial intelligence. So you see here 2013 is the time when it was a bit got popularized with the time and the usage and the application, the kind of applications that it dealt with. But you see the deep learning, in short, I will write DL. So DL, deep learning strategy, basically was coined in 1965. So the history of deep learning is, it was coined, the word was coined in 1965 by Ivanko and Lapa. I will talk to you about this in more detail. But at this time, basically, on this slide, I would just like to mention that the history of deep learning starts here, 1965. And we have one more landmark, that is 2006. So this is the year when the deep learning got the strategy of learning, strategy of training. Without the strategy of training, this deep learning was nothing, right? Deep learning is basically the training strategy. So in 2006, the Hinton, Bengio, LaCun, they came up with the deep learning strategies. They applied to their research problems, to solve their research problems, which otherwise couldn't be managed well with the help of other normal techniques. So that's how you see when this strategy got popularized, people have started using deep learning, and MIT also took the cognizance, and in wider research community, the deep learning got popularized. And now also everyone talks about deep learning, those who are, of course, working in the area of artificial intelligence. Here, let us now quickly look at the use of this word, the deep learning word. So you can clearly see here, this is the cross, and cross is exactly here in 60s, right? So this is the time this deep learning word exists, right? When you search on the Google, right? So Google Ngram basically helps us in plotting this deep learning, the usage of the word deep learning, right? So you can clearly see the history of the deep learning word. And similarly here, if you see the Google trend, see you see here, this is the machine learning, how it is being used, and search on the web, and here we have the DL. So machine learning, of course, is on wider search, but yeah, if we look at the trend, so both are going hand in hand. Okay, so since we are using machine learning, so what is this learning? What this learning is all about? Why this learning is at all needed, right? So I will talk about it. And you see, basically, when we talk of the artificial intelligence, right? So before artificial intelligence, the natural artificial intelligence comes, because natural artificial intelligence only motivated to come up to the artificial intelligence. So first of all, how this learning and intelligence are related, we need to know about it. So you see, if we question ourselves that whether are we intelligent? Yes, we are intelligent. Everyone will talk of the intelligence that, okay, they are intelligent. Everyone is intelligent. But the grade of intelligence differ person to person. So why is it so? It is because, you see, their capabilities, some people would say like problem solving capability, this and that. But the researchers community basically talks like this, like, if somebody can learn faster, is regarded as more intelligent, right? If I can learn slower, I may not be that much intelligent, right? Or maybe faster, I may be more intelligent. So everyone is intelligent. All living beings are intelligent, right? But the grade of intelligence is different, right? These are different, basically. So this means what? This means everyone is having the capability of learning, and this learning, of course, has certain goals. Right? So learning means the parameter tuning, adaptation through the stimulus and the response. So when you have the stimulus and response in sufficient number, this can be used, or this the natural intelligence, for natural intelligence, living beings use as experience, and then they adapt the parameters based on the the input and the response, means the stimulus and response. And then in future, if by any chance, if any unknown stimulus comes, then since the parameters are already tuned, so corresponding to this input, the response is created automatically. And that's how we many times, judge that, okay, if I have this response, this input, this is the response that this response is going to happen. Or maybe based on the response, based on the input, we can judge, or we can predict the response. And of course, when we have this capability, we can make decisions more accurately, more efficiently. So what I'm trying to say here is that if we can learn, we can adapt the parameters of the model, of the natural model, that is in our case, it is natural, it is a neural network. So if that is the case, then with experience, our biological neural network, which is the, of course, the living natural intelligence, and it is helping us to predict and predict the situation. And this prediction helps us in making better decision. So everything is fine up to this, because you see, we are all talking of the learning, and those who can learn better can be regarded as the more intelligent. And then, of course, this process of learning, basically doing nothing but adapting the parameters, which we are knowing unknowingly, doing that every day. And we are taking the decision based on the model that we have, based on the training that we have. Training means the learning, the kind of learning that we have had from the past data. So past data in our case is experience. All right. So this is what is the natural intelligence. This is what our natural intelligence is all about: learning with experience, and based on the adaptation, tuning. If any unknown situation, unknown data, unknown stimulus comes, immediately we are able to we have some prediction capabilities, and then we judge the situation, we take the decision, and better is the judging, better is the prediction, we make right decision. So that's how we operate. Similarly, in cases where we, even after the experience, my neural network sometimes is not able to make right prediction. So of course the decision may also go wrong, or let's say some kind of conflicts may happen. If that is the case, means the actual is different from the desired ones. If these two are not matching, it means the system is not performing rightly. System, the natural intelligence, right? The intelligence that we have, it means not working properly, right? Or that needs to be trained. So in those cases, what we do, we, based on the error that it is showing, we take this into account, and we further correct the parameters. We further tune the parameter, and this is exactly what is happening in case of the examination, right? What students do, basically, they learn the subject, and then what happens? They appear in the exam, and if they are not able to perform up to the mark, what happens? They are given some grades, and if this is a fail grade, so the candidate, the student, has to go further, right, and learn again, relearn. And this relearning is doing what? This relearning is not doing nothing but relearning is tuning the parameters, adapting the parameters in such a way that in future the neural network doesn't make any mistake. So that is how the living beings' natural intelligence operate. So in nutshell, what are we talking? We are talking about the intelligence, and you see, better is the learning, right? Better is the intelligence, or more is the intelligence, right? And we all know that right from the childhood, the children, they keep getting training, and this training helps basically to tuning the parameters and gaining the capability of learning, better capability of learning. And this process basically is helping us in making better decisions in future. So final aim is better decision, right? But this better decision is the outcome of what? The better intelligence. And better intelligence is the outcome of what? Better learning. Now, this we have all about with respect to the natural intelligence, the living beings, right? And also, we should know that not only human beings, as I mentioned, all living beings will have or have the intelligence. So again, the grade of intelligence differ, right? We see here the children, the human beings, right? But what about this? If we talk of the animals, animals also have some intelligence, right? But of course, the grade of intelligence here also differ. So all living beings, they show some kind of grade of intelligence, right? They all have the learning capabilities, right? So this is how we understand what is the natural intelligence, how is it achieved, right? The grade of intelligence also is improved, because in the past we have seen the way we were operating, now we are operating, these two are completely different. Means the tuning of parameters, of course, we normally do not notice this, but in our brain, this process keeps on happening. And with the help of the experience, with the help of the past data is nothing but the experience. We keep on tuning the parameters of our brain. And again, in future, if we see something related to that in that universe of discourse, for any unknown input, right, whose response we do not know, but we can predict that based on the model, that based on the tuning that we have done. But yes, many times what we have seen, cases we come to we are not able to predict rightly. Many times what happens, we predict something, and then when we say predict means it's a judging, right? That okay, if this is the input, that is the output it is going to give, or this is going to happen. So, but many times we fail in judging, we fail in predicting. So this information is also accounted. This information is also taken as the error, and this error is utilized to further tune the parameter of the our neural network, biological neural network. So that's how this intelligence, the natural intelligence, keeps on gaining the enhancement, right? It is getting stronger and stronger in order to make better decision. So it's a kind of self-evolvable, self-adaptable. But those who do not learn from the mistakes, that is what is very relevant here. Normally in day-to-day, we normally talk about. We always need to learn from the mistakes. Here also, we account the error, the actual and the desired, and then we use it to further retrain our brains, retune our brain in such a way that in future, if something happens or similar kind of things happen, but also this also needs to be known that within the universe of discourse, right? So if that happens, then how the judging is going to be changed, how the prediction is going to be changed. It should further be accurate in such a way that based on that, if we make any decision, that has to be correct. All right. So this is what normally is true with our natural brain. Now, what is our goal here is to embed the intelligence in the non-living beings. So why should we at all interested to embed intelligence into the non-living being systems? So you may be remembering that earlier we were talking of the robots, saying that, okay, I want a robot. If I want a glass of water, I will just ask my robot to go and get a glass of water for me, and my robot will be doing that. And yes, of course, these robots were doing the same. Similarly, any order to the robot, any request to the robot will definitely follow it, and it does. Fine. Now, the time has come when what we want is the robot should, by looking at us or me, robot should know that whether I am hungry, whether I am in good mood or bad mood, whether whatever I need, the robot by itself, by just looking at me, by itself, it should be able to know what I am interested in. If, let's say, I need water, a glass of water, I'm thirsty, or maybe I need water, I should not even request. The robot, by just looking at me, should be able to serve either food or whatever, or maybe looking at the situation, it should be able to assist. So that is what is possible if the robot has the intelligence, right? How come this robot will have the intelligence? Of course, robot is non-living being. Robot is a non-living being system. So the intelligence can come only with the artificial intelligent agent. So the intelligence has to be artificial. So because natural intelligence is not possible, we only have natural intelligence, means all the living beings, animals, and the human beings, and also other living organisms. So again, the grades different, different grades are there for learning, and accordingly the intelligence. So, but when we talk of the non-living beings, so non-living beings, robots, let's say we want to embed intelligence into that, we will have to have some kind of learning mechanism the way we have. And with the mistakes we are learning, the robots can also tune their parameters based on mistakes, or even based on experience in terms of the response along with the stimulus, means input and output data. They should also be getting trained. More the experience, better is the tuning. More the data, better is the performance of the model in terms of the prediction. So that all these are very, very analogous to what we have. So this is possible with the help of intelligence, which is man-made intelligence, which is nothing but the artificial intelligence, right? So if this is possible, if a kind of model that is learnable, that can be tuned the way we are getting tuned, our brain is getting tuned, we call this as the artificially created intelligence. Here again, intelligence is nothing but the learning capability, and model in the living, non-living being systems can be further tuned with the help of the mistakes that it is making. The feedback is taken, and accordingly the further parameters are tuned the way human beings are also doing. So what is artificial intelligence is nothing but man-made intelligence which can mimic the capabilities, the processes of the human brain. Of course, this will have a very limited, capability. But yes, whatever capability will be there will be analogous to the capability of the brain in the human beings, right? The living beings. So artificially created brain, artificially created learning systems, training systems, right? Which could help us in predicting the situations based on the past experience. If all these can happen, yes, of course, today we may have the limited capability. Tomorrow, again, incrementally it can be enhanced. And yes, of course, nowadays you see what not is getting done by the artificial intelligence. So all these robots are very well desired along with the artificial intelligence embedding into it. Artificial intelligence is, as I mentioned, this is man-made intelligence, and this is for living beings and non-living beings. So with another name here for artificial intelligence is machine intelligence. This is also the same. The robots, of course, can be embedded with the machine intelligence, with the the artificial intelligence, and they can do the job. So this is how you see the excuse me, there is some issue here again. Let me restart this. Yeah, now this is correct. So there is some issue. There was some issue here. Okay, so we were here. Now, okay, so this was all about the natural intelligence and artificial intelligence. Now we, up to this stage, we understand what is artificial intelligence. Now we can talk of the machine learning here. What is machine learning? Machine learning, and what is the difference between artificial intelligence and machine learning? So basically, artificial intelligence we have discussed enough, and we see what is artificial intelligence, man-made intelligence, right? A system that helps the non-living beings to mimic the capabilities of human brain, right? Now, machine learning is nothing but the process of obtaining the artificial intelligence, right? So this is done through learning. So this is what is called machine learning. So machine learning is the process of training, process of obtaining the model which mimics the artificial intelligence, which mimics the intelligence, right? So process of obtaining the model is the machine learning. All right, so now let us look at some landmarks in the deep learning. So first of all, normal learning, and then we'll go to deep learning. So in artificial intelligence, since I started with learning and then intelligence. So here, this is a very, you can say, a very major landmark in terms of the contribution to the artificial intelligence. Although the name artificial intelligence formally was coined, you see, in 1956, but intelligence, artificial intelligence, the work was on, and this is the major landmark when the McCulloch and Pitt in 1942. They were researching on the brain activity as to how the brain is working. Right. One of them was the doctor, and the other one was the engineer. So McCulloch and Pitt. So both of them, they joined hand together, and they started working on the the process of the learning. And what they found was the single neuron. How does it work? So they came up with, you see here, the neuron, right? You see, sorry, here. This is the biological neuron, the natural neuron. So they came up with the findings that, you see, every neuron has some essential features. What are these essential features? They have the dendrite, they have the nucleus, they have the cell body, they have the axon, they have, they have the axon terminals. This is also called axon buds. So all of these are basically essential features. So neurons in the body can be many kinds of, but these parts will always be present in any neurons that are found. So you see these dendrites here, you see these are the dendrites, right? And these dendrites, they basically collect the input and they pass it to the cell body. And these neurons, these dendrites, basically, the input that it takes, that is getting summed up. And if this sum is more than some threshold, which is decided by the cell body fluid here, this acts as a filter, right? So this has certain characteristic. So if this, based on the characteristic of the fluid, right, it filters the signal. So some of the signal is basically first, passed through the fluid, and fluid acts as a filter. Based on that, based on the characteristic, the threshold, etc., the axon gets the spikes here. So please understand that the output of the biological neuron is never analog. Output of the biological neuron is always the spikes, right? So this is how the spikes are getting generated, and these are nothing but the voltage signal. So the same voltage signals will be available everywhere. It's not the current, it is basically the voltage. So the same voltage will be available everywhere. Of course, the current will differ if they get connected, right? But since these are the spikes are the voltages, so the same voltage will be appearing everywhere. All the axon terminals will have the same spikes available. So you see these axon terminals, as I have mentioned, that they will have the spikes. Now this question comes as to what is the duration of these spikes. Yeah, we normally think that, okay, if we input some signal to the neuron, it should give accordingly the output. It is not like that. Here we get the spikes, and the rate of spikes basically is at the max 100. So the only, you see, based on the input and the threshold, the spikes get generated, and these spikes can get the maximum of its frequency up to 100 hertz. And that is where is the limitation. So that's how brain is not very powerful in terms of its, frequency, right? It means it cannot quickly compute things, right? But yes, it can be, if like in recognition and all, it is more powerful than even computer, right? It is because, the parallel processing, it can manage with the parallel processing. But when it comes to the computation, right, computers operate in gigahertz, right, hundreds of gigahertz. So here the brain operates in 100 hertz only. So all the neurons are, the maximum frequency at which they operate is the 100 hertz. So this is how the signals are available here. And then you see here in biological neuron, we were here. So all these spikes are available here. And then you see for carrying out certain processes in the brain, certain tasks in the brain, normally tens of thousands of neurons are connected together to carry out certain tasks. So neurons normally, as a single, it doesn't work, right? It doesn't, is in use. So how are they connected? That is the question. So you see here, these axon buds, they will be with certain voltages which are available everywhere. And then these voltages will be going to the other neurons, right? Like here, this is the dendrite of the other neuron, right? This is, let's say, the neuron. So this is the dendrite of the other neuron here. So you see, they make some connection, and this connection is not hard connection. These are the soft connections. When we say soft, this means, they are not completely bound. They are not completely connected. So here we have a synaptic junction. They are loose connection basically, and in between the dendrite terminals and the axon terminals, we have the neurotransmitters. And these neurotransmitters basically play a very important role. The density of the neurotransmitters basically decide the action of transfer, the amount of transfer, right? So the voltage, the signal that is available here can get transferred to the next dendrite, right? If the neurotransmitters are sufficient. And if the neurotransmitters density is more, then more signal will get transmitted. Otherwise, the signal may not even get the transmission. So like that, you see here, and the signals, right, keep transferring from the axon buds to the next neuron through their dendrites as the input, right? And now you see, since the connection is not hard, so there are chances that complete voltage is not passed, right? So now obviously we can understand that normally whatever voltage is available, the transmission will be less than that, right? The level will definitely fall down. And that's how this weight concept has come up, right? Like, the total voltage, total signal, total input is not getting transferred. So that's how you see these W's are coming up, right? That, okay, so some weightage is added to the actual signal. Okay? And that's how this, in the artificial neuron, that is the mathematical model of the neuron, the W's are getting added, and the weights, these are called weights, and the weight values are normally in between 0 and 1. So this means it cannot be more than 1, right? So, and of course, unless we amplify the signal, unless we magnify this through some means, right, this cannot be more than what is available here, right? So that is how this weight vector is always, taken in between 0 and 1. So now coming to the artificial neuron here, this is analogous to the biological neuron, the natural neuron. You see, we have the synapse here. This is synapse, and because of this synapse, the weight is coming into picture. See here. Similarly, the dendrite, you see here the dendrite. Here, this is dendrite terminal, right? So analogous to the dendrite terminal. So input terminal is the dendrite terminal. So likewise, all the inputs can come and move to the cell body. You see here, so all the weight, all the inputs, right? So the inputs means whatever is effectively coming here is the xi, means all the inputs multiplied by the wi's, right? Means with weights. So effectively, this is what is getting transferred. This is all these are getting transferred. And then when all these are getting summed up, see, we get the summation of all the Wi and Xi plus the bias. Bias is also used to, set the reference, right? Like this DC value, right? So many times you see, we adjust the output accordingly, depending upon what it is desired. So we add some bias, and then further everything is passed through this signal, this filter. So you see, this filter means some function is used here, and then whatever function that we take is called activation function here, and then whatever is here will be a function of this, and that's how the output is getting created. So this is how the simple mathematical model of neuron by analogy of the biological neuron is created. And up to this stage, we have come to know that as to how and why these weights are in between 0 and 1. This is very important, to understand. Okay, so this is what is the artificial neuron, right? The mathematical model of the biological neuron. Now, we have, as I already mentioned, that we have so many kinds of, first of all, the neurons normally are in groups and they are interconnected. So we have so many kinds of network topologies, right? One of them is here, is feed-forward topology of the neural network. So the feed-forward neural network topology, first of all, has, you see, the input layer, which is never a neuron. Please understand, this is the input. These all are the input nodes. These are not the neurons. So don't get confused with these nodes. And then we have all these are the output nodes. These are the neurons, but these are not the neurons. These are the input nodes only, which are just representing the inputs, right? And then here we have all these are neurons, all these are neurons, all these are neurons. So we have input layer and then the output layer. And in between these, we have the hidden layers, right? So in any neural network, any feed-forward neural network, we have the input layer, the output layer, and then in between that, we may have some hidden layers. And these hidden layers, the number of hidden layers will depend on the kind of complexity that is being modeled by this neural network. So if the system that is being modeled, that is being trained, is highly complex, then of course we will be needing more and more hidden layers to match up. Otherwise, if the system is very less complex, likely to be linear relation, then of course we don't need the hidden layers at all in many cases. So hidden layers basically are what actually are they doing is basically here. Every hidden layer will have the activation function, right? So every hidden layer is with some function, either same or different. So in a way, all these hidden layers are doing what? They are basically, you see, taking the function of functions. Means if we have the x here, let's say some input is coming here, then what we are getting here is the f of x. And then here what we are getting, if f of x we are getting here, then of course what is we are getting here? F of x. What does this mean? This means that we are, taking the function of functions. And similarly, more and more hidden layers will add up, will take up to the hyper dimensions. So we all know that any highly non-linear relationship, if it is represented in higher dimensions, hyperdimensional setups, what we see the linear matchup there, right? So if let's say we have some relationship, we have some input-output relation, highly non-linear in lower dimensions, and if we take this, we visualize this in the higher dimension, this relationship, what we will be seeing is this will become more and more linear. This can be seen as more and more linear system, more and more linear, relationship. So that is how it is working. That is how it is helping. So when we talk of, when we are interested in dealing with very high and complex, highly non-linear system, we are interested in modeling, then of course we have to have the more and more hidden layers. There is no choice. But there are, of course, problems associated with. Of course, if we are interested in modeling such a system, then it will be highly computationally expensive. Why computationally expensive? Because we will have more and more parameters, and these parameters need to be getting tuned, and tuning of these parameters will take more time, more space. So that's how, it is very expensive. And up to this, we all know that the backpropagation algorithm is the only mantra. Backpropagation algorithm is the only algorithm that is available, that was available basically, to train such networks, to train artificial neural network. So all these are fine up to some extent when you have very less number of hidden layers, right? If we have more number of hidden layers, as I mentioned, that this is inevitable, because if we go for highly complex systems modeling, then we will have to have more and more hidden layers. Then in that case, there are some issues. What are those issues? Issues are, first of all, is we normally never land up with global optima. Second, we face the problem of vanishing gradient. And because of this, in the hidden layers, the more number of hidden layers, the network with more number of hidden layers, they do not perform. They are not accurate enough. They are not efficient, right? They make more mistakes, right? Because they are not trained properly. So these are the issues that we face with artificial neural network while we are training this. So what I'm trying to say here is that the normal neural network, that doesn't give us the global optimum. There are two reasons of it. First reason is random initialization. The second reason is the vanishing gradient. Right, and of course, densely connected networks for, more complex systems modeling. So all of these actually create issues. So what I'm trying to say here is that this training, if we have better strategy for training, all these can be avoided. So first of all, every time we are interested in global optima. Global optima is must, because if we have developed any network, any artificial intelligence, ANN, right, any artificial neural network, that should perform every time on the same lines. It should not be less precise. It should not have less precision. It should be very good precision. It should be having very good precision. Otherwise, this is of no use. Sometimes it works like that, sometimes it works like this. So then we are not sure that whether it is going to perform well with the same set of data or not. So that's what is the major concern here, and that's how the artificial neural networks were not very preferred techniques of modeling schemes of the complex processes, complex systems. So basically, what these the hidden layers do. So when we have the neural network, right, and neural networks get deeper when the hidden layers are increasing. So normally when we increase the hidden layers beyond 2 to 3, right, the backpropagation stops working. That is the usual concern. So this deep learning strategy. So deep learning is basically is independent of the kind of the model that we are using. Deep learning is just the strategy, and deep learning actually gives us the tool. That it gives us the strategy as to how a network can be trained efficiently, no matter how many hidden layers are. So this is irrespective of the hidden layer, number of hidden layers that we have. The deep learning is the strategy which helps us to train the network, to adapt the network, to tune the parameters in such a way that it performs the best that it can, and every time it performs the same. Its performance remains the same. So that's how, it is very useful. So when we talk of this deep learning basically is for the network which has multiple hidden layers, and every hidden layer is hierarchically, aggregated. This means that, let's say, first layer, hidden layer, is giving us creating us some kind of, managing some kind of features. Then the next level will be giving us better features, right? So data is getting better and better. Means the hierarchically, we are able to manage with we are able to get better understanding of the problem. So that's what is the, here, the hidden layers, basically, as I already mentioned, doing. So let us now quickly look at the deep learning. What is basically deep learning? Deep learning is the strategy, see here, that deals with a set of algorithms developed to achieve deeper intuitions and intricate structures in data. All right. So deep learning framework comprises of multiple layers of nonlinear processing nodes. And you see each layer in deep learning represents higher hierarchical level. I already mentioned that, function, a function, a function, a function. The moment we add one layer, it becomes function of the previous variable what was coming. So like that, we increase the hierarchy, and getting the these parameters tuned is really it's a very complex task. And of course, we are striving for the accuracy. So of course, we are ready to pay for the complexity. So you see, the deep learning algorithms have revolutionized the representation learning in unsupervised or semi-supervised manner. I will tell you this in more detail. And here are some of the deep learning models that you can see. The DNN is one of the deep learning based model. So what is different here is we have the neural network, but we have more number of hidden layers. And will not be efficiently trained by the conventional technique, that is backpropagation algorithm only. So that's what. So in deep neural network, we have more layers, and this layer basically the network can be trained by using the deep learning strategy, and this deep learning strategy involves two-stage learning. First is the coarse learning, and then the second is fine-tuning. I will discuss this probably in the coming slides. So you see, all these are the examples of deep learning based models. So as I already mentioned, that deep learning is completely independent of the kind of the model that we use. It could be with the neural network. It could be with any network containing the non-linear nodes. So here, when I discussed by taking this as the artificial neuron, but it could be any neuron. It could be any non-linear node. So deep learning is just the training strategy, like backpropagation. So deep learning uses the several layers of nodes between input output, right? The same lines as we have seen the neural network. So this way, you see, we can visualize the deep learning strategy. Now let us quickly go through the history of deep learning. So as I already mentioned, the deep learning model was proposed by Ivanko and Lapa in 1965, and that time, please understand that this was a time when backpropagation was also conceived, but backpropagation was not used because it was not matured enough to get to train this network. So that time, this polynomial activation functions and you see the some statistical tools were used to train this network, and this is the actual network which was used for the when this deep learning model was deep learning strategy was coined. But of course, this strategy was also not mature. Was getting researched, but it was when the Bengio, Ivanko, and Bengio, LeCun, and Hinton came up with the idea of doing this thing. So you see, am I audible enough?
Everything is perfectly all right.
Everything is perfect. Very good. I was just getting the message that the internet maybe is not very good. So I just thought that maybe I don't know whether I'm audible or visible. Okay, very good.
That might be
Very
at their terminal. The issue at their terminal. Okay.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So this way you see the deep learning model was discussed. This deep learning was coined, and let us look at the backpropagation algorithms evolution. You see, so backpropagation, as I mentioned, was coined in 60s, but it was in 1985 when Parker and LeCun simultaneously rediscovered it. But finally, in 1986, right, when Rumelhart, Hinton, William Hinton has contributed, by the way, a lot in this area. So Rumelhart and Hinton, Williams, all these, basically these researchers, they finally came up with the matured version of the backpropagation algorithm. And then, since then, the use of backpropagation algorithm was on and on till the time the you see the 2006 when deep learning strategy was coined. So let us now quickly look at the some deep learning networks, some deep learning strategies, some deep learning so since everybody whosoever has gone through the artificial intelligence, first name comes with the neural networks. So of course the deep learning was again used with neural network. So using deep learning strategy on neural network with more and more number of hidden layers, is called as deep neural network. So many times I get the question, how deep is deep? How deep is deep in the sense that you see when you have input layer, which is of course the non-neural nodes. So first layer and then the last layer is the neural node. So and in between that, the number of hidden layers, if you have more than 2 to 3, then of course it is it needs to be trained or tuned by the deep learning strategy, not the backpropagation strategy. And of course, you use the deep learning when it is needed. When you have only 1 or 2 nodes as the 1 or 2 hidden layers as the hidden layer, then let us not better use the deep learning strategy, because it is taking a lot of time, it is consuming lots of efforts. So deep neural network, when we talk, it means the neural network which is having more than 2 to 3 hidden layers in it. And that's how you see hierarchically we can understand that it actually discovers, every layer discovers better and better features. So this is actually not the actual findings, but this is just the representation. So every layer is actually helping us to get the higher level of the features. And you see, as I was discussing, that Hinton, Vengio, and the Laquins group, they actually helped us in proposing the better strategy of the learning the deep networks. So this learning basically involves again two stage learning. First is the course training, and then the second is the fine tuning. So course training basically is here. Okay, before that, I would like to just show you some of the deep neural network architecture, like you see, LSTM, RNN, and there are so many. So you can just look at these pages, and then out of these we have few, couple of neural network architectures which are considered to as deep neural networks. So you can see here, and maybe while going through some literatures, you have come across these names, so you can now very well understand what these mean. So you see, there are two stages of learning. First is the building of autoencoders, right? And this is an unsupervised manner. In this learning is in unsupervised manner. So this autoencoder basically can be used like this, like you have the inputs, and while learning the layers, you can use the same inputs here. You can produce the same input, and based on that you can find out the parameters, right? This means that you need to, so learning of the hidden layers can happen with the by using the input data, and you have to reproduce the same data as the output. And if you are able to do that, your course training for that particular layer is done. And this is without noise, and then this can be with noise as well. So here you see the denoising autoencoder, right? Here the noise is mixed with the data. So we have the input, and then the corruption is done here, stochastic corruption, then encoded on the same lines, and then further decoded. So likewise, you see this denoising autoencoders also work. Then comes the second stage of training, that is fine tuning. Here we use some classifier. So this is max classifier. This is a probability based classifier, right? But we can have any kind of classifier for fine tuning. So first level of tuning is the course training. The second level of training is the fine tuning, and this is how the deep learning strategy is used for building the models. So as I was talking of the further roadmap of this deep learning, so what we have done here is that instead of neuron as the nonlinear node in the deep network, we used the fuzzy models. So we used TS and we used Mamdani. So both the models basically replaced artificial neurons, and we basically were able to model a very complex systems with the help of these. And there were certain advantages because the fuzzy has some unique capability, and this capability that I'm going to tell you is cannot be shown by any other artificial intelligence agent. What is that capability? See, basically fuzzy can deal with the uncertainty due to vagueness. imprecision, and ambiguity. So these certainties basically otherwise cannot be modeled by any other strategy. Fuzzy is the only tool through which this can be modeled. Probabilistic tools, probability-based tools only can handle the uncertainties due to randomness. These two uncertainties are very, very different. See, randomness and the uncertainty due to vagueness, imprecision, and ambiguity. So this was, thoroughly experimented. And if you are interested in further gaining the idea of, the experimentation and the use of the model and the model development, you can, because the time is coming to an end, so it is very difficult for me to explain further, but I am going to give you the reference where you can find the rest of the things, right? So the rest of the things can be found here. I am going to give you the reference. So reference is here. So this, if you are interested, you can use this reference. You can get more details on this topic. So with this, I would like to stop here. If you have any questions, please come up with that. I will be happy to answer that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Participants, please. If there are any queries.
No queries.
You can write in the chat box.
Any query? No query?
So one question from Mike. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Now I can see one.
Yeah, I can see here. I can see here one query from somebody. Is there any delay in neuron transmission and how it can be handled? Yeah, so as far as biological neuron is concerned, obviously there is a delay, but when it comes to the artificial neurons, right, artificial neural network, we normally don't consider any delay at all. Number one. Number two, the kind of, you see the signal, the spikes that I was discussing, this is also not very relevant in artificial neurons. So these are the two things that we need to understand. And so there is no need to handle that. In fact, we normally create the delay. So if we talk of the LSTM, you see, here a delay element is intentionally added to take the, to create the memory element. So that's how, different version of it is called the LSTM, but otherwise it's normally not considered. Yes. Any further questions?
One question I would like to ask.
Yes.
There are many situations in the control, like with the conventional control, let's say there are control techniques. If you apply to achieve some objective through a process or a plant, then many of time we are getting better results. And often we see in the literature that still the people apply these intelligent techniques and all, and then they compare, and the result is somewhat better, But is it wise enough to apply the intelligent control at all times? Or is there any clue
Yeah,
where
that
you
is a
should
very,
apply?
very interesting question, very important question, I would say. Yeah, that is actually normally when I teach in class, I discuss. So yes, so ये बोलते हैं ना जहाँ काम आए सुई वहाँ बोलिए कंप्लीट करिए अगर आपको पता है
वहाँ करे तलवार
so
क्या करे
तलवार
तलवार
नहीं लगाना है जहाँ पे सुई
जी
right
जी जी
so
जी
इसलिए we should not everywhere use the AI based techniques. See, AI based techniques can be used only when it is needed, right? But because otherwise, you know, why should we waste our efforts, unnecessary, you know, energy and the computational resources in doing that? See, control is a very important area. Very, you know, control basically needs the quick feedback, right? Quick action. So if we are investing in this computational efforts, right, we cannot afford any delay. And this deep learning AI, these are the strategies that are needed only for the systems which are otherwise cannot be managed, right? If we have already the normal equations, we have physics, we have differential equations known, then we should not go for it. We shouldn't go for it at all. We should use these techniques, these algorithms only when no other strategy is available.
Okay, sir. Okay. So one thing, like in every control, there is a measurement system or the feedback. So that always have some delays that is inherent in every measurement or equipment. So these intelligent techniques are enough to compensate those delays?
Yes, definitely. Because here, you see, it is when we deal with such cases, we normally create the delay here. Right? And this delay is actually modeled. So then we can automatically know what should be the value of that delay, right? And what should be the accordingly, you know, so we basically predict based on that.
So one more question, sir, on fuzzy logic.
Yes.
Yes. In fact, what we do, this is entirely depends on the perception of the designer or the perception of the whatever who is applying that control. So, sir, I'd like to ask at this note whether if I'm applying this fuzzy control, so often it is said that once the model is in fact imperfect or the model is not available, then you have to apply that fuzzy rule base because the system is the input output and the linguistic rules are there and that will do our job. But often in the paper again, we see there are model available and still the people are applying for the fuzzy. This one thing. And secondly, suppose we are applied this fuzzy control and got the result. And so this is inside what we do is we have some rule base. So what is the extent that the rule base should be created? Whether if the exhaustive rule base is created and there may be inter-conflict in that.
First of all, I would like to repeat here that when we have the white box model, that means the mathematical model available, then we should not at all go for any AI agent based model, whether it is fuzzy based model or neural network based model, doesn't matter. But we should not unnecessarily go for it. See, mathematical model means the physics based model. If it is sufficient enough, then we should rely on that. Number one. Number two, we need these models only when we have some issues with those models, like we may not have sufficient data available, data in the sense the, let's say, if we are interested in modeling the magnetic field in the space, right? So then there are myriad of factors that are affecting that magnetic field. So we know the physics, but it is very difficult to apply all those physics, right? So that are applicable. So then in that case, we need some kind of model, right? Which is big black box kind of model, which could help us. Because if we are, let's say, trying to mathematically model that, we may be writing the differential equations, of course, but these, the model that we are trying to get may not be sufficient enough to, understand, to be defined, accurately. So that is how the black box modeling approach is helpful. Only it is when we don't have sufficient physics available, number one. Number two, when the system is not accessible to us. So in those cases where we are unknown of the situation, unknown of the physics, right? So then we worked on the stimulus and the response. It is exactly on the same lines. The driver need not be knowing the engines working, right? Let's say a car driver, right? Car driver should know that much only. If I press this much accelerator, it is going to take up this much speed with this much gear. Do I need to know the gear teeth and engines and everything? No, right? So what we do, when we learn the car and we are very accurately driving the car, are we or not? So it is exactly the same. We are developing the black box model of the car. We are driving the car, right? Even without knowing anything, what is happening in the engine, right?
Yes,
so we are not writing any mathematical equation. Are we writing? Nothing. So exactly on the same lines, these artificial intelligent agents are working.
Yes, yes. Exactly, that's because of the perception of the driver.
It's not the perception, it's the training, it's the experience. The driver has to experience by doing what is happening. What is the stimulus and then what is the response? So he understands the engine, right? He understands the behavior of the car. He doesn't measure that if he has to, let's say, turn 90 degree, then does he 90 degree turn the steering? No. He knows how much I have to turn. He doesn't calculate.
So the response of the fuzzy control would entirely depend on the training of the designer.
No, any AI based control or intelligent control controls response, means response, the accuracy will depend on the training. Okay, from the past experience.
Yes, I got it, sir. Any other questions from?
Hello, sir. Hello.
I cannot see you. Do you see me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm Ravi Shankar, sir, from BITS Planning Goa. Can I go with two trainings simultaneously? Can I train simultaneously two way?
I didn't understand your question. Can you?
I will write in chat box, sir. I will
clarify. Can you clearly tell me what you want to ask? I am not getting your question.
I hope, sir, you want to ask that for a particular system, if he want to apply two techniques simultaneously, means let's say neural and fuzzy, like that, it might be.
But why? Why would you? So, what is the need?
So might be the compensating the demerits of each other.
Yeah, so if you that way, if you are interested in, you can apply any number of methods.
Okay.
If that is the question, this is the answer.
Yes, yes.
But
yes.
I'm not very sure whether he's asking the same.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Will you hear me, sir?
Yes,
Yeah, I
you are
can hear you. Please go ahead.
If suppose my once I train the system and that system get failed, so can I design a redundant one training module to work on that systems once the first training get failed?
Say again. Can you repeat your question?
Redundant training module. Can I set a redundant training module?
Redundant training model you can use, but see, you can do all these when it is needed. See, redundant training model, why would you do that?
Sir, actually, I'm working on underwater vehicle. See,
Hmm.
their structure is not fixed one, so their environment is very uncertain. So if I set a one,
So you mean you are trying to use multiple models for
models,
the
yes,
right, multiple models,
yes,
right?
yes, yes.
Then you can do that. So that is called multi-model approach.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
okay, sir. I can see no more questions. So you ended on time, sir. And this way, I hope this control faculty development program is becoming somewhat intelligent. And this is the 4-day last session. So on behalf of the Department of Electrical Engineering and on behalf of my own, I would like to again thank you, sir, for your wonderful lecture. And this is an intelligent lecture as well. So thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone. Thank you especially to Shekhar Yadavji. Thank you very much, and thanks everyone for attending this talk. I'm really amazed to see the kind of questions that you have asked, and that actually gave me a signal that you enjoyed the talk. Thank you. Thank you
Yes,
once again.
one thing, Professor Giri, sir, are you still here?
Yes, yes.
So,
Can you?
if you would like to say a few words. Yes.
I am amazed to see Professor Giri also. He also sat all through and spent time in listening to
not
lectures.
spend time. I learned and learned in a deep manner. So it was really a deep learning for me as well. So it was a nice session and it started very smoothly. And you have created or managed that.
Thank you so much, Giri.
But thanks a lot, Professor Burma.
Thank you, Giri sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So can I leave now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you once again, everyone, for patient hearing. Thank you. I also enjoyed your company. Thank you.
Yes.